The following is a Podcast One Minnesota production.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
If it's made in Minnesota, who's making it and how?
Yeah, you got that right.
It's the Makers of Minnesota, focusing on the products and services uniquely made in Minnesota, and conversations with the makers, entrepreneurs, and innovators in Minnesota about how they conceived of their products and how they brought them to market. With Stephanie Hansen, it's the Makers of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Stephanie Hansen, and you're listening to the Makers of Minnesota podcast. Thank you for joining us today. We are on episode 33, and I say this every week, but it really is meaningful to me. If you like this podcast or you've heard something that inspired you, if you could share it and let other people know about it. Podcasting is still, well, it's not new. There are a lot of people that are just figuring out that it's a lot easier than it used to be. There's apps that you can download on your phone, and then you can find a whole host of programs and shows of things that you're interested in. In this particular situation, you can find us on Podcast One, but we are also on the My Talk 1071 show page, where we coincidentally, I have a radio show about food called The Weekly Dish, so you can find us there. Also, we have a Instagram page, a Twitter account at Makers of MN, and Facebook. So if you have any ideas of other makers that you think you want us to talk to, please let us know, because some of the recommendations for the stories that you guys have given us have been super great. And today, I am going to be talking with Ben Reentz, and he is part of a group of 9 people that are on the very cusp of, in the middle of forming a new restaurant company in town. And originally, when I started this podcast, I had the opportunity to sit down with Phil Roberts, who I think is one of the founders of like a restaurant group in the Twin Cities, and he had developed lots of restaurant concepts. So I'm really excited to have you today, Ben. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
I love the idea that like talking to Phil was kind of not in the twilight of his career necessarily, but he's sort of more on the tapering off side and you're on the beginning side. So I read an article, I think it was in the Business Journal, about sort of you guys and your world domination plans. So thanks for being here today.
It's my pleasure. I'm really excited.
Okay, so I think I first ran into you maybe at an event somewhere, and then someone was like, yeah, you have to try this gastro pub in Richfield, which I'll just be honest, it wasn't like woo, great. But Lynn 65 is wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Were you a kid in Richfield that grew up there, or why was that a location appealing to you? Because it's not known for their restaurants necessarily.
No, it happened pretty organically. I grew up in Lakeville, Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
And played sports all the way through. So, we travel everywhere. I've been to Richfield a bunch.
What did you play?
I played hockey and soccer.
Okay.
So, 2 really good sports that I really love. And they're pretty quintessential to Minnesota now.
Yeah.
Too, but, no, just traveling, getting a feel for it. I started working in restaurants when I was 16 years old, that whole thing, whether it was dishwashing, bus.
What was the first restaurant you worked in?
It's called the Nicollet Grill in Burnsville,
Sure.
Minnesota. It was there for just an instant, and then it was gone, but it was a chef-driven restaurant, and the chef was crazy.
Were you a good student?
In school?
Yeah.
Not really. No, I was pretty bad, actually. I got into Hamlin University for soccer, but going into my senior year, I had a 1.8 GPA.
Yep.
I didn't turn in homework. I didn't really care, and I was, I had no passion for it at all. And so then, going through some of that stuff, trying college, going through a bunch of them, not really realizing, I just kept trying because your parents want you to.
Well, I was just going to ask you that. So I believe that some people just aren't college material. Doesn't mean they won't find their way doing something else. But so you were in sports in high school, which probably grounded you to the high school and trying to complete.
Right.
And so your parents wanted you to go to college. So did you just know this is just not going to be good? Or did you think, I'll turn a new leaf and...
They do a good job of telling you that you're going to turn a new leaf when you get into college. And it's a very supportive community. And if you can accept that, and if you're ready to accept that and become a part of that community, I think it becomes much easier to be successful. But I wasn't ready. I was sleeping in still as social anxiety, all those good things that a lot of chefs have.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to class and all those things. So But I kept finding myself in restaurants throughout all of it. So whether it was Nicollet Grill, Ruby Tuesdays, Applebee's, I got a really good corporate background in serving and doing some kitchen work there. But as far as the location in Richfield for Lin 65, it wasn't really my choice. I was approached by my partners when I was working at Restaurant Alma, and said we want to open up a restaurant. We had a mutual friend that connected us, and I said, okay, that sounds good. I started conceptualizing. They said you can either go to Nicollet or Diamond Lake Road in Minneapolis, or you can go to where we are now at Lin 65.
So let me ask you about that. How often are these partners people that you're still partners with today?
Yeah, yep, they are at Lin 65. They are, yeah. So we're going on our separate ways as far as the future of the Tributarians and Popol Vuh and Central, which we'll get to, but. Yeah, they are very, very smart businessmen. I've learned a ton from them. So they own a lot of property. They have acquired a good amount of wealth, so they can be the bank as well.
Yeah. So how did they pick you out of? You were at Restaurant Alma.
Yeah.
How did they pick you of all people in the universe to say, like, hey, kid, I want to give you some money and I want you to open a restaurant. Where do you want it to be?
Yeah, no,
like something had to happen between there.
They owned a house right on Lake Nokomis that my best friend was renting. And so they were managing that property. And one of my partners he's a great guy. And he was just talking to my best friend for a while, and then of course, through the conversation, we want to open a restaurant, blah, blah, blah. To Kev, my best friend saying, I know a guy who works at Restaurant Alma. He's got a good pedigree, all this stuff. So then the conversation started. We started, communicating about food and my visions. And these guys are a little bit more of the Buffalo Wild Wings style.
Yep.
Where I obviously come from being with Alex Roberts and the scratch kitchens and all that stuff. But they wanted to put TVs all over the place in Richfield, and they wanted to have baskets of fried chicken, and not fried chicken, chicken wings, and a million sauces. And I just basically said, guys, that's not what anybody here wants. They can go down the road and get that everywhere. There's Houlihan's, there's Champs. At the time, there was Champs. And so we just kind of, for me, it was just a conceptualized thing of what I knew, what I've been through in my past. I didn't eat vegetables until I was like 23 years old, which no one knows. I wouldn't. I was the pickiest eater in the entire world.
Really? What were you eating instead?
A plain cheeseburger from McDonald's, Domino's Pizza, all that stuff, suburban kid growing up. That's how you kind of, especially if both parents work, you just kind of fend for yourself. And there's not really, cooking's a chore back then until the Food Network comes along and makes it pretty.
Do you remember watching the Food Network? And thinking that was cool?
Yeah, and all the ads at night and stuff, which is getting everybody into trouble now. But I was hooked on all that stuff. So, and being in restaurants and stuff like that, you think I wanted to work at a steakhouse when I first started culinary school. Luckily, the day I started culinary school, Alex Roberts also called me for an interview at Brasa. So my trajectory changed immediately.
Right.
Because if I had just gone to culinary school, I would have ended up at a steakhouse, and I would have been
or a hotel, I would have been
broiling, asparagus 365 days a year, and I would have been cooking steaks and all the old school stuff that doesn't really have a place in city centers anymore. It's really hotels is one thing because you have to have that. You have to be able to service an entire, place.
Yeah.
And so you have to keep it more simple and not so intricate. But now I think we all really love these independent restaurants and stuff like that.
So how did Alex Roberts find you if you weren't even through culinary school yet?
It was so I had applied to something at Restaurant Alma. I looked at the website. I didn't get any of it. I didn't understand it. And then it said it was a Craigslist ad, and it was looking for their sister restaurant, Brasa. And I applied to it. When I was moving back, I was going to school in Wilmer, Minnesota, still continuing on my college journey.
Yeah.
I'm like my 6th college. And then I was going to my 7th at MCTC for culinary finally. But the day that I was driving to go and do my registration for culinary school, he called me. And I went and met him at Brasa. I didn't know what yuca was. I had no idea. I'd never eaten creamed spinach. I just lied my way through it in a way. But I think he just saw that I was eager.
Yeah.
And, the position at Brasa back then was you work at the steam table, so I'm just plating food.
Right.
I didn't need to cook, which is a huge, huge step in for me. It was the best opportunity that I've ever had. And to get into that organization with a guy like Alex at that time was it was amazing.
Alex Roberts has mentored a lot of chefs in the Twin Cities area. Him, Tim McKee, there's like a list of people that have really mentored and grown a lot of people. What was it about him? I mean, you worked there 5 years. What was it about him that struck you?
Yeah, it didn't make sense at the time. I didn't really realize it because I think when you're inside of it, you don't know. And for Alex, he's kind of insulated in a way. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that.
And he seems a little shy.
Yeah, I mean, he's concentrated. He's focused on what he's doing. He's all about his employees. But just for a young cook, he's insulated. And he's got his sous chefs. He's especially back then. That place was run by an amazing chef who's up north again now, Brian Morcom. But he and Mike Berger, who's still at Alma, he's now like the main guy doing everything there. But Mike's been there for like 16 years, which is crazy too. But we were insulated, but working there with Brian Morcom kind of changed my life too. Brasa was one thing. Alex saw that I was eager to learn. He knew I was in culinary school, and opening came up in Alma, and they switched me over.
Yep.
And so my first day, I was working on the cold side or salad station with Mamie Gretsch, who's went on to cook at Alinea, a bunch of places. She moved down to Nashville. She got married, and she owns her own bakery now. She's making amazing like artisanal donuts and
cool.
Yeah, it's really cool, and making amazing ice creams down there. But my first day there, she gave me one project, which was a wild nettle souffle, and she said, "You have 4 hours to make this," and it took me like 4.5 hours to make 30 of these little intricate souffles, because it was still my first foray into real cooking, where you're blanching the kale or the nettles, you're cleaning it, getting all the dirt off of it because they're foraged, and that was just eye opening to me.
And to make a souffle, I mean, that's not easy. I know you've gone to culinary school, but
I was 6 months into culinary school, so I wasn't even to that point in culinary school yet. So Alma was definitely the catalyst that showed what was up, and now I think it's speaking for itself even more now. I hope that it continues to, but as Alex is up for national James Beard Award, this year for best chef in the nation, I think that shows just how special Restaurant Alma really is too.
It's so cool too that he took what was a successful restaurant, he kind of reconcepted it. He added the hotel on the top. He added a coffee shop, kind of a more fast casual, but also has some table service on one side, and then modernize the restaurant side just enough, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it feels very new again.
Absolutely, yeah. And just the way it's a special event now when you walk in there. And like Rick Bayless does it in Chicago. There's a few other places that have the dual concept, casual, and then with the hotel up top, which is just great. I mean, Alex has been huge just to get some laws passed in town here too.
Yeah.
That used to be the same liquor license and hospitality license that you give a strip club that he had to go get. So they had to change that whole thing. But yeah, I can honestly say I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him and Brian and the rest of we talked about who he's mentoring. He's mentored so many people. Most of them still work for him.
Yeah.
And they've been there for 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 years.
So when you have Lynn 65 and you get this opportunity, and I think a gastropub, is that a fair way to describe it?
Yeah, for sure. We weren't. To me, it's an homage to my family because my two brothers still will not eat vegetables. They won't do anything. Two of them won't. The middle other one, so there's 4 boys, old.
Your poor mother.
Oh my gosh, she's a saint. My dad traveled all the time for work since I was 13 until I was 20. He still does.
Right.
So, oh my gosh, that woman raised 4 boys, all in sports, all doing things.
Yep.
I think anybody can identify with how hard that probably was. But my two, the oldest and the youngest, are still really picky. The other middle brother is trying new things, but it's not like he doesn't have the transformation that I have. Because I think the minute you start cutting an onion and sweating it and smelling it, you get interested.
Yeah.
In vegetables and all that stuff, but yet they haven't had that interest yet. So Lynn 65 to me is a place where they can go eat still. And my dad, who loves food, my mom, who loves food, she can come and get her fish.
Yeah.
She can come and get a steak or braised short ribs, things like that are kind of staples in these kitchens now. But they can still get a cheeseburger. They can still get French fries. They can still get chicken wings. And so that's really was the goal, and also just my upbringing kind of made Lynn 65 a really good, in my opinion, suburban concept. Because there is something for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to establish and acknowledge that there is a complete difference between the city and the suburbs. People who are, the people who really, really, really are attracted to the suburbs for its space, its convenience, its quickness, all those things, and affordability. They're there for a reason, and they're not attracted to the cities. Whereas
Right.
the cities is very attracted. It's an attractive place for people who are maybe a little younger, people who want
Right.
to have those cool restaurants and things like that. So, and who are willing to pay.
Well, and I think programming to where you are is important. One of the things too that I feel like at your restaurant that's real unique still, city or country, is the service.
Yeah.
I'm big on service because I think a great restaurant can really be a ruined experience if the service isn't right.
Absolutely.
And I think a mediocre restaurant can totally overcome it with charm and service and treating you well.
Yes.
And you'll continue to go back there. So I just remember the very first time we went to your place. My husband's kind of more of the meat and potatoes. I was happy that there was a little more than that because I was at a strip mall in Richfield, just sort of like sour about the whole experience.
Yeah.
But yet it was great, and the service was really good, and I felt like they talked to us a lot about what the food was, and it just really felt good.
Yeah.
And I can see now, looking at you expanding into these other concepts and forming this group. The group is called the Tributarians. Are these all people, like, are you taking that Alex Roberts model and you're going to grow people?
Yeah, I mean that's, to me, right now in the industry, right? I think we've been through the golden age of independent restaurants in the cities, and that's not, there's all these articles about the bubble popping. Well, the bubble popped 4 years ago.
I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah, and it took a while for it to kind of get there, because all these people that would have gone to normal colleges or have normal jobs didn't want to be in the trades. They kind of got caught up like I did in it all, in the romanticism of it. But at the end of the day, it's a very hard job. It's not a very welcoming job. It's not good for your lifestyle. It's not good for anything. It's not good for a marriage. It's not,
Right.
So what I wanted to do with the Tributarians is create a concept, and we're still conceptualizing it as we move and as we slowly and steadily go. But I wanted to have something put in place where people could view this as a career. And so, whether it's really aggressive profit sharing, we're going to start doing full benefits. We're going to do 401k. We're going to do health savings accounts. But we're trying to get every single person, whether it's the dishwasher to the owner, myself, making $50,000 to $60,000 by the end of 5 years is kind of the goal.
And the way you think you will get there, it has to be a different business model.
Yeah.
How are you thinking about that?
Yeah. So, and that's kind of the Tributarians. Why a tributary is a very large thing that gets fed by a lot of smaller things, and so, and also it's also a funny thing on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which
Oh my God, my husband's favorite show.
Yeah. They call it paying tribute when they send over crappy red wine to the other table or whatever else. So it's really a funny, for us. We have a good sense of humor at Lynn too. So we took that and we said, okay, this is a cool idea. How can we do this? But the way we're going to pay people and the way we're going to do it is we have to get other concepts open, and we have to give ownership to people where they deserve it. So the Tributarians will own 20% of every restaurant that it works and that it manages.
So you become sort of the investment arm, and
Exactly.
well, like some gentlemen saw you and saw your potential.
Yeah.
You'll do that with other people that you've worked with.
Yeah, other people that we've worked with, and even outside of people that we've worked with. My goal in this, and I haven't really shared it with any of the people that are actually in the Tributarians yet. We've been working, when we're trying to do all this stuff. We've got service at Lynn 65, where we're meeting with David Shea and his guys for Popo Vu and
Yep.
Central, and we're working in nonstop work. So all these ideas kind of come. It's like writing songs or something. You get the idea, you write it down, and then you move on from it. But my goal with the Tributarians is for us to have a full suited out restaurant design group that can conceptualize for any chef. So say the chef that was just at Tulubi comes into town and he wants his own restaurant, or someone like Joe Raleigh, who's just this amazing chef and hasn't found his own restaurant yet. They pitch us an idea on the front end of the website. We vet it out and we start working with them, and we have the capital to invest. So we become the investment machine too. Hopefully we own real estate as well. Is also part of the goal.
So you might be the next Phil Roberts.
Well, yeah, but we're going to do everything one-off.
With a group.
Yes, yeah. So, and just like in Chicago, the one-off hospitality, and it's going to escape me right now. I'll think of it in a minute. But
Let us entertain you?
Not lettuce. So lettuce is more like the old school
Mm-hmm.
parasole, where they're looking at it from lower your costs and all that stuff. Where Alex always taught me, raise your top line.
Yeah.
Invest more in it, put more money into it, get better ingredients, get better people, instead of like you got to cut your labor now. We run 42% payroll at Lin 65, which is
Hi.
oh my God, yeah. I mean, people think
It's
they
about
hear
double
that.
what a normal
Yeah.
restaurant would be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so payroll, it's scary, but the Tributarians is just going to be an organization that we kind of manage wealth ourselves in a way. There's all this information out there to how to become successful and all those things, and yeah, I'm really hopeful that we can get this going. But the front end of that website, yeah, a chef will come to us. They'll submit their idea, and we'll vet it through. We'll get everything going on it. We'll greenlight it, or we'll say, it needs more work. We'll see who the chef is. And it helps also for our growth, too. We can go to Des Moines, because if someone local in Des Moines who has got a great resume writes to the Tributarians and says, hey, I want my own restaurant, I want it to be in Des Moines, it's not at all only in the cities at all. We want to kind of go everywhere with this. But, yeah, and then we do all that stuff. We become the bank. We get 20% of their restaurant, and then they own the rest. And they decide what they do. But we provide support. We provide human resources, which is huge for restaurants.
Right.
We provide accounting. We provide any support they need to change concepts and things like that, because we have the talent, I think, in our group. So it's an ambitious goal, but I think deep down, I think that it's possible. And if we share, and if I don't keep all the money, if I don't keep it to myself and make millions of dollars away, I mean, that's obviously grandeur, but if I can say, hey, I want to make $70,000 to $100,000 a year for the rest of my life, and I can live on that, then I think we can pay our dishwashers $50,000. I think we can do that kind of stuff.
It's all very hopeful.
Yeah.
What's the word I'm looking for? It's
Naive.
all. I mean, there's a certain naivete to it, but that makes it sound like it can't happen. I think it can happen, and you can be with the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what the restaurant industry will need, is people that see it. It's totally fair to want to make a living wage and to want to raise a family. And most people can't.
Right.
It's hard. It's why, Vincent walked away from his restaurant, and there's all these people that they had a family and they decided they wanted to spend some time with their kids.
Yeah. It's become, the restaurant industry right now is an unsustainable model. The way that it is right now, it is not sustainable, because I don't have children, but owning a restaurant and wanting this goal will not allow me to have children,
right,
until I can take steps away. But the thing that people understand is you can't take steps away from
right.
a restaurant. It's a living and breathing thing, and every day it starts over. So and there's a lot of people that are there. It's like a big pirate ship. There's a lot of people that are all coming into one place to work there who haven't really made it in the mainstream.
Yep.
Because for one reason or another. So there's a lot of clashes of personalities and things like that.
Egos and agendas and
the egos are. That's the nice thing about Lynn, like with the service there. The one thing that I always preach is no ego. Like, you just can't. We're here to provide people with an experience. It has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with them. They're the ones that are paying our bills. They're the ones that are doing this. So, whenever a server gets sick of the music that's on and changes it for his own, because he's sick of it.
Yeah.
No one else. Everyone else is only there for an hour and a half. They're not going to get sick of this music.
right.
But that's just a very selfish thing to me. That's not a hospitality moment. That's somebody not being able to work. But that's just an example of the way we view our hospitality at Lin 65 and also at Central and Popol Vuh as well, and moving forward.
And tell me about Win 65. Did two of the guys come to you and say, hey, can we do a truck?
Yeah, they didn't ask me per se. Travis, and that's the other thing. To think of the Tributarians, think of it as a cooperative. So they didn't really have to ask me. They got their own financing. They got all that stuff. And they were there since the opening of Lin. To me, they're like brothers, and my success is their success, and I hope likewise. Yeah, they just bought one.
It's like this very tricked out Winnebago that's pretty cool that serves awesome fried chicken.
Yeah, 1970s something Winnebago.
And how they made that into like a functioning food truck kitchen is hilarious.
Oh my God, yeah. They, Travis found it on Craigslist. Some guy had done it, but he hadn't done it well. So we had to go. So the idea was in place of a Winnebago food truck. a mobile, falling apart thing at all times. So they had to put a lot of money into it to get it up and running. I think it's fantastic. I think the simplicity of the food and just the true hospitality that Travis can give too, even on a truck in a 5-second interaction or 10-second interaction. He's very true with it. And
Yeah.
Jason Sawicki on the truck making the food. I mean, he's our workhorse. He was at Alma with me for a long time, and he's like this 6'3" burly guy that just kicks butt. He's amazing.
So you have Lynn's on Lynn 65, and I was talking to my radio partner Stephanie March and said, well, why do you think he hasn't expanded, up until now? And she said, I think he's sacking away money. I think he's got this plan, and he's, gonna get the money that he needs to execute his plan. You're obviously working with Shea as a good design company. Mm-hmm. You've got a building that you're working on that's near the Indeed Brewing spot, which didn't scream restaurant when you first looked at it. It looks like you're going to have a lot of build out going.
Yeah. Well, and that was we partnered up with an amazing guy who's, I don't know if you'd mind me saying his name, but his name's Josh Howe.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, Josh. Sorry, bud. But he made a really great living when he was younger, restructuring airlines and doing things like that in Europe and in Africa. And he just got, the way he'll tell it, or he told me, is that he just woke up one day and he didn't like the people that he was working with, and he didn't like his lifestyle, he didn't like the life he was living, so he just kind of quit, moved home. He's got a family now, but he's got this company called Optimistic Partners. And so he worked with the Ole Arepa guys.
Yeah.
He did some stuff at Red Stag and manages that place, but he genuinely cares about the concept. He cares about the neighborhood. He cares about everything else. He's not just a landlord that wants to cut and run, and so he's doing a lot of the build out with us, and he's gonna completely shelling out this old building and something brand new for us.
It's real. Oh, I saw the building. I was like, well, it can't be there. And then I just drove by it literally yesterday and again thought, am I sure that's the right spot?
Yeah, they're tearing down a lot of it for a big parking lot. They're going to completely, redo the entire thing, and it's going to be this very beautiful, almost like beacon of a place there once it's done. Right now it does. It fades away, which is why I think a lot of people didn't see that building.
Yeah.
It just is like, oh, that's an old nasty
blue.
Blue. Like, what is that? But, then you start seeing what these incredibly intelligent people start doing with it, architects and designers, and all of a sudden you look at something on a piece of paper and you say, holy cow, that's amazing.
So what was it, you've obviously been working towards this. You've been thinking about concepts. You've been thinking about this shared collaborative work environment. What was it about the chef that's going to be leading the charge at Popol Vuh? Sorry. We're going to talk about the name in a second.
Yeah.
What was it about him or this idea that was like, that's the one that's going to start this deal?
It's just all been opportunity and not, I met him. He worked at Lynn for about...
Is his name Jose?
Jose, yes.
Okay.
Jose Alarcon. This amazing guy who's got an amazing story, just immigrating from Mexico, and he'll tell that someday, which is, his story is incredible. But he works hard. Everything he does is literally, he's made Lynn 65 really great because he brines our chicken. He does all the hard, the behind-the-scenes work that people don't want to do at home.
Right.
The stuff that takes a few days to get done, and he does it all perfectly. And so he allows us to be very successful. But I just noticed that his work ethic, he doesn't ever complain. He doesn't, he says thank you. The please and thank yous are huge. And all of a sudden, I was talking to him one day, and I just said, have you ever wanted your own restaurant? He said, yeah, I kind of wanted. I was thinking about just a little cafe called Popol Vuh. It's a children's book in Mexico about Mayan and how we're all created. I just thought, holy cow, that's amazing. 2 days later, I got an email, just a phishing email from these, brokers that are looking, and they said, we got a space in Northeast. Would you want to make another Lynn 65? And I just kind of sat there and said, yeah, that's cool. I'll take a look at it. Went out and looked at it and walked through the space, and just once you get inside this, the outside looks like something, but the inside's this cavernous brick, old 1920s windows. Like, it's amazing in there. So immediately, just seeing that space, I said, no, it lends itself to 2 restaurants. That was something we had to do because it's split up into 3 different rooms. So we have one on one side, we have the other restaurant on the other side, and then a big production kitchen in the middle type thing.
And Central will be the taqueria side of it?
Yeah. Central is going to be kind of like a market. When you walk into there, you're going to go through a line and order your food. You'll sit down. We're playing around with the service model of that right now because we're a little wary of the $15 an hour model, how that goes and what that does to restaurants of any style. It will be something to watch, but we're kind of just getting ahead of the ball. We're designing it so we can go to a table counter service, and if the $15 an hour thing gets pushed back, or if it doesn't happen, or if we get a tip credit.
Tip credit, yeah.
Tip credit. If we get that, then it takes some of the stress off, and then we can provide full service. But if we can't do that, we're trying to design a concept just like Green Street Meats in Chicago, Big Star in Chicago, and Joko, Rick Billis' place, where it's a walk through Chipotle. I mean, kind of did this stuff too. So we're turning on its head a little bit by having a full, huge island bar in the middle with margaritas on tap, with just a big Boston-style oyster pit. So it's going to be a place where you just go, you get your margaritas on tap, you watch some soccer on TVs, you get a bunch of tacos, tortas, braised brisket smoked brisket by the pound, things like that.
From maybe you learned how to make some brisket at Brasa, I'm assuming.
I did, yeah. Well, and then, all the plethora of amazing books that are out there now, like Franklin Street Barbecue.
Yeah.
It's just like...
Have you been?
I haven't been.
It's worth it. You wait a long time, but it is worth it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the fun thing. And then you see what Thomas is doing with some barbecue in town now.
Yeah.
I think people are... That's one of those foods it's like America's food.
Yeah, Thomas is Chef Thomas Famer with Revival and Corner Table.
Yes, yep.
And winner of the Cochon 555.
Yeah, he knows how to smoke and braise and get into that French stuff really, really tight too, which is really fun. But his background in barbecue is amazing, and I think that there's still a lot of room in town and in this market to explore. I don't think barbecue-centric restaurants really going to do very well anymore because Revival has really, set the bar there. Brasa, I would consider also a different style of barbecue, but so we've got this comfort food renaissance happening in Minnesota.
And the brewery is right there. That can't hurt. For walk-up window and...
Yep, we got a takeout window just for those folks. We're probably going to, I haven't spoken with Indeed yet, or Able, but in Tattersall's right across the track.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll probably set up some sort, I'm hoping, of deal where we just have food that we give them menus. You can call our phone, we'll order, and we'll deliver, or however we do it.
Yep.
So it's just an amazing location. That Central side is going to be, so vibrant.
How are you going to describe Popol Vuh? Like how... Because I ate the food, and I really liked it.
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain to someone, I was like, well, it's kind of upscale Mexican, but then I wasn't sure that really was this description, because it was homey.
Yeah, it's Jose Alarcon's restaurant. It's his flagship restaurant. In my mind, and just knowing him for the year that I've known him, I think that he's probably one of the next big talents coming out of town. I think he has a lot to say. He's got this amazing pedigree and background, whether it was Travail for a short time, and then Brasserie Central. I cooked a lot in Mexico. His grandparents owned a bakery in Morelos, Mexico, and back then they would they'd make the dough based on how humid it was out and how hot it was. So the different breads for how days went, and he grew up in that environment, milling their own corn and all that.
I loved the Tres Leches cake that he made. It was almost like this very light piece of grilled cake. Yeah. And then there was a coconut, like a sorbet that was with it, and it was just really light but delicious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in that dinner especially, he cooked a little defensively on that one too. Some of his technique didn't really get to shine through. I think he got a little scared of the number of people that we served that night. And also Lynn's kitchen is so dysfunctional, and it's so, it's impossible to cook in to begin with, especially if you're not using the pizza oven. It's just a big, gigantic thing that just sits there. That he, we try and do the best that we can with what we have there. But at Popol Vuh, he is going to have a really beautiful Argentinian-style grill.
Right.
All wood-fired plancha. He's going to have this really nice mesquite barbecue oven, too. It's all very rustic, which in conceptualizing it for him, I've kind of taken the lead on it as far as what these two restaurants are going to be. So it's me conceptualizing this stuff with Jamie Olson, who's amazing. And then the rest of the Tributarians are now starting to get into it, now that we have these concepts. But Jose doesn't know what he's walking into. I mean,
Right.
That's kind of by design too. I want him to have to struggle a little bit. I want him to have to find his footing in a new kitchen because it's going to breed creativity.
Right.
Learning how to use all this stuff right away, and then all those, his memory will recall flavors and how to make them and all that stuff. So, that's something that we're. I'm so excited about. And then we have that central kitchen in the middle that does have all the gas. It's got the range. It's got the slow cooking ovens. It's got the smoker. All that stuff that goes under a gas hood too. So there's so much flexibility for Jose, and with the raw bar and everything else.
Yep.
It's going to be, and it's in a tiny space. It's 56 seats with one private dining room with 12 people in it. And so you're gonna walk into this space, and right to your left when you walk in, there's a huge just rolling fire going, like a big fireplace.
Yep.
That cooks with lines, all out in the open. And the smell of that place and everything else is going to be so alluring. And then you get these small plates, and maybe we're taking a spin on a Japanese hot pot, which is like a family-style, very poor community rice dish.
Yep.
Where you put everything in it, and you cook the rice, and then you just stir it tableside, and you just slop it out. But we're doing some twists on that and going more Mexico City with it, with some braised meats, chilies, and the
Yum.
stock. And it's going to be just like this shared plate that, it's that type of cooking that gets right into our hearts and our souls.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And it's a fall opening?
Yeah, September 30. I always say September 31st because it doesn't exist. October 1st is the date, that we have to be live. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job very well, and we're paying rent and not making any money.
Yep.
So.
And there's a Vietnamese restaurant that's being bandied about.
Yeah. There's just through my working at Lynn and at Alma, some of the cooks that I've gotten to know over the years, that's a passion that is completely untapped in the chef-driven world. And we have Non-Bistro, which is amazing. It's
Yeah,
great.
really great.
I love that place. But as far as kind of our spin on it, taking it and doing something a little bit different, and with a really strong cocktail bar, really strong wine list, and focusing on the service aspect, and then just kind of hiding away the really good food that we're going to do.
Mhm.
We're conceptualizing a place called Capo, which is the Japanese term for, from my understanding, is just the art of giving hospitality or feeding someone or giving them that gift, I guess. And so it's a really, really unique and inspiring idea in my mind. And we're just kind of playing around with it, doing some stuff, trying to make the right connections to make it happen. But we're going to give Popol Vuh and Central a couple years, I think, just like Lynn was 2 years. This one will get 2 years of, depending on, I'm not going to be there very often. I'll be there for the start, but this is their restaurant.
What do you wake up at night worrying about?
A lot. I worry about, at Lynn 65, I worry a ton about, just the arc of a brand, I guess, and being chef-driven, your arc can be interpreted as your life if you, like Alex has, if you have the managerial ability, if you have the goodwill, if you have all those things to keep people around doing it for you. I bet if Alex was sitting here right now, though, and he was still working the line every day, he probably wouldn't be open.
Yep.
If he was working 60 hours a day still at 45, sorry, Alex, I don't think that he would necessarily maybe be doing all this stuff right now. But he's been able to form with good relationships, and by being true to his employees, he's been able to form this company where he speaks and everybody knows exactly what he's saying.
We keep hearing about the chef crisis, and are you worried about that? It seems like you're finding people.
Yeah. Oh God. Well, no. I mean, we're stretched so thin at Lynn 65 right now that once the food truck opens, we literally do not have people. I'll be working there on the line 5 to 6 days a week again. Like it was when we started for the first 2 years, which thank goodness for alcohol and things like that to get you through those first 2 years. But now it's very, very stressful, and there's not the interest. There's no, at least the culinary schools, while they weren't developing good cooks, they were developing at least some interest, which was misplaced a lot of times with these young cooks because they'd get in there and they'd want to make $14 an hour and they'd want to have a say in everything. Where, no, you're coming out of culinary school and you're going to start peeling vegetables and you're going to actually learn how to cook my way. And
not to diss on the millennials, because we do all the time and they get a bad rap, but there is something about that age group too where I had a niece that got a job offer, and she didn't think that they really wanted her. So she didn't take the job. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Nobody wants you getting out of
No,
college.
yeah.
You're like the low man on the totem pole.
Yes, that's the brand. I remember distinctly in college, one of them, I forget which college because it was so many, but the arc of where you are and what you should be making in your life. And so from 20 to about 40, you're going to be underpaid because you're going to be working a lot and you're going to be making less than everybody else, but the arc goes up. And of course, and then you hit that 40-year mark, and then you get above what you should be getting paid for your output. And so by the time you're
Oh,
in
that's
your
interesting.
50s, you're making more than you should be getting paid, right? But,
Yep.
So people need to keep in mind from 22, 23 years old until you're into 40, you're not supposed to be really making it.
Well, and
earning
it's
it.
the time where you're creating yourself.
Yeah.
Your hard work speaks for your efforts and
Absolutely.
when you own a company, it is really amazing, B, stressful, and you're laying in bed. Like I used to lay in bed at night and think, oh my gosh, if we don't make this number or buy this extra press or make this decision, someone might not be able to feed their family or pay their car payment. And as you get more employees, you have people that rely on you and, they're angry about something or they don't feel like they're getting enough in their hourly wage. And you're really like struggling trying to think about how they're going to stay with you to make their livelihood.
Exactly. It's this industry. There's so many amazing things with that. I mean, with Lin 65, I was told by my partners we're going to open up in December of 2013, and so I quit Alma. I didn't have a job November of 15th, and they told me that I would make my salary starting when I quit Alma. We're going to be there. Fast forward to August of 2014, and we finally opened. So I didn't have a job. I was doing carpentry. I was making tabletops. I made all the tabletops at Lin 65, but I was filling my gas tank with change.
Yeah.
I had nothing.
That's
Absolutely
a really, like, a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've talked to on this program, and certainly myself and my husband, everybody quits their job too early.
Oh yeah.
Because you have this idea in your mind of when it's going to happen. So that would be a good takeaway here if you're listening, entrepreneurs, that when you think it's the time to quit, plan probably for 3 to 6 months or have a good stash of cash.
Yeah,
because it doesn't happen in the time frame you think it's gonna.
Yeah, or get a serving job, something where you can find a casual enough thing where you can get some cash coming
Yep.
in, which I just didn't feel like I could anymore. I had my coming of age at Alma, and I had this amazing feeling, and I actually burned Max over at Stewart's. I read I needed a job. It was like halfway in between quitting Alma and opening Lynn. I was working, but I wasn't getting paid for anything. I needed to find a job, and Alex told me, get a serving job. Don't get a cook job. You're not going to like it. So I said, no, that's not true, whatever. And then I took on Craigslist, I really loved Max's ad, and so I went and I worked a couple days. And I just called him the third day, and I said, hey, I'm not coming in today. I'm going to hang out with my buddy.
And Alex was right.
He was so right, yeah.
Why do you think he was right? What did he know?
Oh, he's right about it all. He's been through it all. And he's got this, like, fathering or mentor, the way he mentors and the way he...
He's a really unique person, for sure.
It's amazing, yeah. I mean, we opened Lin 65 with $3,000 in the bank. We had zero contingency. We had nothing else. We hadn't paid ourselves, me, Jason, and Travis, and Ty. We hadn't paid ourselves in, like, 2 months.
And with 4 of you, when you finally got some money, did you split it equally? I mean,
we had our salaries.
And how long
Yeah,
did it take you to get it up to speed?
Yeah, we all had equal salaries because everything was going to be equal or is
Yep.
equal for the most part. Now it's getting more confusing, of course, with all the different things going on. But no, I mean we opened that first day. We had a $5,000 net sales day, and we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
Our soft opening was probably the funniest one in history. I wanted to have past pizzas, but we had no control over what was happening. So everyone just sat down and started ordering pizzas. We started the pizza oven on fire. We started our pizza paddles on fire. All the grease, and then we were putting out this garbage product. It was amazingly a huge failure. But then we started the first day. We have some of the best Yelp reviews in history. There's one that says, like, second graders could open a better restaurant than this. It's amazing. If you ever dig deep enough into our Yelp history, it is awesome. It was all 1-star or 5-star.
Okay, that's funny.
We were so inconsistent with everything. But yeah, we were working 7 days a week, every day. It got so stressful that we started shutting down the restaurant. But talking about the stresses that keep you up at night, not making payroll, things like
Yeah.
that. When you open a restaurant with $3,000 in the bank and you haven't gotten your opening food or liquor inventory
Yeah.
yet, and you still need about $100,000 in equipment, you start off at a negative $160,000.
Yeah.
So we put our heads down, we ground, and we didn't. Our state of Minnesota, but we were late on our income tax for the first our sales tax for the first quarter.
It's funny you say that because I read the tax liens.
Yeah.
I've always read them.
Yeah.
And restaurants are notoriously in there for the tax liens, and they're big amounts of money.
Oh, yeah.
Because they will use that money sometimes as startup capital.
Cash flow.
And if that restaurant doesn't succeed, it's hard for them to ever pay it back.
Get back in it. Absolutely true. And luckily for us, Richfield turned out to be the right place. It turned out to be a place where people accepted us.
Yeah.
Throughout it all. I mean, we had so many missteps, and we screwed up so many times because we didn't know what we were doing. And I'll blatantly say that. And same thing's going to probably happen at Pueblo Central.
It will.
It'll be better, but it's not going to be.
The mistakes will be different, but they'll be mistakes.
Absolutely.
It's just part of living, and it's also part of teaching the next generation or that generation, not age-wise, but figuratively, of people coming of age in your business. They have to have those mistakes. They have to learn them themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just thought of something, speaking of Central and Popol Vuh, and the Cook's crisis, the one thing that I'll say will have an advantage on over everybody else is that it will be a heavily Latino-dominated kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
It will be, and that's, I think, where we're going back into it. If you look in the 80s and the 90s, they were underpaid and they worked really hard, right? And so that was the allure of having them. And then we went through the golden age where a bunch of people like me went to culinary school and started cooking, and we took a lot of jobs out of that. But now nobody really wants to come back in, and so.
And it's nice to see them as a group of people that have worked hard, the proverbial them, being able to now step into the light.
Yes. And now there's establishment for living wages for cooks, which wasn't a thing before. Even when I started at Alma, Alex was so proud that he could pay overtime and living wages to his cooks.
Yeah.
He paid living wages back then, which now it's even more expensive, but he'd do it. And so now there's going to be more opportunity, I think, for this to be, like I said, a $50,000, $60,000 a year job with benefits, with all that stuff.
Which seems real normal.
Yeah,
I mean, it
right?
doesn't seem like this should be the thing we're really stretching to make happen.
I know.
And I don't mean to sound callous about that amount of money, because that's the average for a family of 4, I think.
Yeah.
I just feel like that should be doable. This is one of the best restaurant communities in the country, and
we eat out more as a community than we ever have in the past. I forget the number. I looked it all up for my investment deck for Central and Popol Vuh, but it's insane how much money we spend in this.
yeah,
town.
it's when I get my Visa bill at the end of the year and it shows you the pie charts. Food and alcohol are like 3/4 of my pie. I don't even buy clothes.
Yeah, I'm the same exact way as you are.
It's all eating out.
Yeah, and it's getting to getting to feel the hospitality, getting to see what people are doing in this town, and in that way we are so lucky in this town.
Okay, so quick rapid fire food questions, and then we're gonna wrap it up here.
Yeah.
So you can order a drink at any bar in town. What bar are you going to order from? And you can't say your own.
No, I won't. Can I go back in time?
Sure.
Meritage, Rob Jones. When he was running that show, I lived right down the street, and a mezcal old-fashioned.
I have had that drink. That's so funny. Rob Jones and I have a funny history. I used to do this thing, and I still do it, but I always had like a bartender boyfriend or chef crush. It just, not sexual, which makes my radio partner so uncomfortable. But Rob Jones was my bartender boyfriend because he was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And I've just followed him. And when he opens, like, your boyfriend's over at blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, he is?
Yes.
I love Rob Jones. He's great.
He's the one to have that boyfriend, or have as
it's just a total, admiration for him and what he does. And I think I even introduced my husband to him once. I'm like, this is my bartender boyfriend. He was like, oh, this is the guy? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, you know this.
I love chef crushes and just people, I have my favorite hospitalitarians. You could be ranking right up there. You'd have to move Tim Niver over just a little bit. But
I was going to say, if we get to that question, he'd be number 1 for me. I mean, he's the natural gift of just making people feel welcome.
Yeah.
And then you can see it in his concepts, in his design, how he does things. He actually conceptualizes that aspect into his experience. And so for him to see the success that he's having right now is so great, because it's true. I mean, he's like the Danny Meyer. Alex is probably Danny Meyer in this town, but To use that analogy, if we're all striving to be like Danny, which I think we should, I know I'm a huge follower of his, but just that natural gift is something that is so hard to find.
When you have food shame, what is it that you're eating?
Oh man. I shouldn't. It's just my go-to at the end of the night every night because Pizza Luce is open so late. Spinach salad and the Italian combo hoagie.
Yum.
I share that. It's so good. It's just like
No shame in that.
No, it's so good.
I did ask you when we were warming up the microphones, like what you had for lunch today. You were like, "Well, I haven't eaten," and to be fair, it's 4:00. And then I said, "Well, what did you have for dinner last night?" Well, what did you say? Cheese?
Cheese, yeah, some cheese and a baguette. And, just sitting there, I don't know.
After being around food all day, is it not pleasant to like eat it?
I feel guilty going into restaurants sometimes because I immediately empathize, especially if they're getting crushed. But I also am very like, hey, good for you guys. You guys are doing it. You're making money. That's great. But the burden on the kitchen sometimes is a little much for me.
So it's not even pleasurable to...
My own restaurant's definitely not. Oil and 65. Restaurant Alma, always pleasurable. And the Alma Cafe, because that's just like, it's going home in a way.
So I'm really hoping, I shouldn't probably say this on a podcast, but I'm really hoping that they get some service things worked out over there.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with the way that they do it, because it's counter service in the morning and then it changes over and it feels very communally run.
Yeah.
And Brasa used to feel communally run too, and it drove me crazy.
Absolutely.
And they changed it. In Grand Avenue in St. Paul, someone would seat you, someone else would take your order, someone else would do this, someone else would do that. And you just felt like it was just this mass of nobody knew who was doing what.
Yes, absolutely. I will say I'm sure that Alex and his team will be the first ones to figure that out.
I talked to one of the bartenders about it, and she was not stunned by what I said and so very thoughtful about really wanting to hear what I said. And she was like, "Can I have him call you?" And I was like, "Well, I don't want to be that girl."
Yeah.
She was like, "No, but like we need to know because we're really all invested in trying to make this better." And I was like, "Well, okay. I mean, yeah, I guess. Tell him to call me."
Well, and it's a great point, though, too, of expectations, because I have those expectations, too, of a restaurant. It's a living and breathing thing. And so Restaurant Alma on one side, they'll probably still have a lot of their things in place because it took them 18 years to get to that culture.
Right.
This Alma Cafe is all of a sudden a brand new concept, and it's a brand new concept for Alex, too. The cafe and the full liquor license.
Yeah.
It's his first one ever. So having Bitter Cube in there, they've got amazing employees, but they're not necessarily Alex's employees. There's just a lot of disconnect, I think, right now.
Yeah,
and
they're...
they form that team and that bond, and everyone's working with each other instead of, in a way, against each other, which is always, until you can get that stuff in place, and like I said earlier, Alex says something, everyone knows exactly what he's saying, and they do it. Right now, it's probably not exactly happening there because it's rusty. It needs its
Well, and I could tell you as a customer almost to the day when either management changed their process or they changed the way they did their service. And it just became a night and day experience. And I'm not even, people think like because I eat out all the time that I'm really picky. I'm almost the reverse.
Right.
I can get really bad food and not complain. I can get really bad service and just like suck it up.
Yeah.
But when it's like for me to actually talk about it or to put it into words, it's really needs some help at that point.
You and I are both the same in that.
Because I just sit in like, oh, yeah, they're busy.
You can empathize with it.
Yes.
The empathy for that, you see it, you know what's happening, and you can see that. I've witnessed some of the greatest meltdowns in restaurants ever. There's a St. Paul breakfast place. I think it's still open, but it was on Selby. I won't say the name, but like hour and 45 minutes for breakfast food.
Yeah.
Diner food because cook called in sick.
I know exactly that restaurant.
And it was just like, oh, I feel so bad for you guys.
Yep.
Like, oh my God.
And the poor servers
they had tears in their eyes at the end of it, and it's like it's not necessarily your fault. And A, it's not your fault. B, this doesn't matter that much. I mean, I'm here for breakfast, and I have friends here. We're having fun and all those things. But yeah, the service aspect of things is something that is definitely so important. And I like that you said that though, because it is so important for us to get that feedback too. Especially
and that Stephanie always rags at me. She's like, you need to tell them. They need to know.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't need to be the one that ruins their lives, like someone else can. She's like, no, you should.
Yeah. Well, and you do it in a constructive way, which is great. It's not when it's, hey, how is everything? And they say, oh, it's fine. And then 5 minutes later, it's on Yelp. star.
Yeah.
This, and this was wrong.
Have you ever written a Yelp review?
I started, and I only do 5 stars. I started for all like my buddies and stuff, and I give like very, very intricate, well thought reviews and things like that. For Stewart's for Max, I was just like,
Yeah.
that place is so great.
Yeah.
Talk about a little place where, the owner's there every day, and the servers love it, and you can just tell their joy. Even though, when they're busy,
And that's the place that was the former, is it 120, Cafe 128?
Yep, that's it.
That is a place that they've redone, and it's real cute and really sweet.
Yeah, I would say
they made the smallest place on earth feel like a big restaurant.
Yes.
But cozy.
That's a great compliment.
Yeah, because it just like, originally when you went in there, it didn't feel so great. And they've redone the space, but the space is still the same, but it feels so much better.
It does, yeah. And the kimchi hash.
Oh, yeah. That's real legit. I'm with you on that. All right. If you are going to have a beer, what are you going to have?
Something light. Lager. Doña Chela is the new Minnesota lager. Which,
I've had that.
Yeah, we've been supporting them. They're contract brewing places, so until they get their own place, I think that Sergio is going to have a hard time with consistency and things like that. I think, if you're batching and then you're bottling and then you go to a different brewery or whatever you do, it's really hard to get the same exact thing going every time. But that's the style of beer that I really, really love. Miller High Life, I'll have.
Oh, that's funny.
In my 20s, I had all the big ones, the IPAs, EPAs, and now I can have 1 or 2 of them. And then I switch.
Yeah, it is interesting. The amount of alcohol, the percentages can creep up on you. I live right by the Happy Gnome, and sometimes you're sitting there enjoying something. It's like, 12% alcohol. Great. Thank God I'm walking.
Yeah, and it's made so well that you can't even.
No, it's not Bernie. It's not big. It's like, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sitting with us today. So we will be looking for a Popo Boo's opening, Central's opening. We'll be looking for the Win 65 food truck at our favorite festivals.
Yeah.
We'll be back at Lynn 65. And we'll be looking forward to what the Tributarians are going to be doing. It's 9 people in your group. Is that a finite number or?
No. The way I had it kind of corporate, well, it's an LLC, but I had it structured in a way so there's a lot more to give away.
Mm-hmm.
And I myself only own 12% of it. And then the other guys own 10. The youngest members own 8.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, and so they all get 20% of every restaurant we ever open just through that. But if it's their concept, they get the other percentages too.
Yeah.
We greenlight it just to give that little bit of more of a stake in the game or skin in the game, and then we're just gonna start saving money through that, and then
it'll be super fun to watch. I was really excited to interview you because I feel like you're on the cusp of something.
I hope so.
And that's what this show is about: is learning about what entrepreneurs do. And when you look back and you're going to be the Alex Roberts and you're going to be talking to somebody like Ben Reitz, and what is a piece of advice you're going to give?
The advice is hard. Don't get down on yourself, and don't, say thank you to everybody. Say please, thank you, and don't take things too seriously.
See, your mom taught you some good manners, or your dad too, but that's your mom right there. All right, thanks for being on the show today.
My pleasure.